Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I used to believe daylight meant safety. Like if the sun was up and kids were crying over Happy Meals and old guys were debating lures in the fishing aisle, then nothing truly bad could happen. Night shifts were different. I'd worked plenty of those. Fast food, gas stations, even 2 grim months at a sketchy motel in Jacksonville. That place still shows up in my nightmares. I expected weirdness there. But Walmart, in the middle of the day, that was supposed to be safe. I moved to Summerfield, Florida in 2023 after rent in Orlando got impossible. Summerfield's this quiet town about an hour and a half north, half retirees, half people like me who couldn't afford to live anywhere else. The Walmart Supercenter is the town's nucleus. If anything's happening, it's probably happening in those fluorescent aisles. I took the job there because I was running out of options. My last relationship ended in flames, and I didn't have a place to stay. My cousin Megan let me crash in her spare room, and within 2 weeks I had a blue vest and a plastic name tag and was smiling through gritted teeth asking strangers if they'd like to sign up for Walmart Plus. I hated it. Everything from the chipper announcements to the managers obsessed with write-ups. But it paid the bills, and on slower days, usually early in the week, it wasn't the worst. I kept to myself, did my shift, said hi to regulars, avoided drama. That was the plan. It happened on a Monday, midday, the kind of Florida heat that doesn't just sit on your skin but punches through it. I'd spent the morning outside in the garden center, sweating through mulch bags and helping little old ladies lift trays of petunias into their cars. Around noon, they pulled me inside to help restock grocery. I was relieved. Air conditioning, shade. I remember feeling cooked through. Headache gnawing just behind my eyes, but otherwise everything was normal. That's what I keep coming back to. Everything was normal. Until it wasn't. I was in aisle 8, zoning the canned soups, lining up labels, facing shelves. That's when I first saw him. He didn't seem off right away. No yelling, no mess, just off. He was maybe mid-40s, rail thin, with shoulder-length brown hair that looked greasy, like he hadn't seen a shower in days. He wore a faded black t-shirt with some cracked band logo and cargo shorts with odd, dark stains near the pockets. But it was his eyes that stuck with me. Too wide, too much white. He was blinking, but not often. And he wasn't looking at the shelves. He was standing at the end of the aisle, motionless, just watching. At first I figured maybe he was waiting for someone. A partner shopping down another aisle or something. I looked down at my cart, adjusted a row of chicken noodle, and when I glanced up again, he was gone. Whatever, I told myself. It's Walmart. People wander. But about 20 minutes later, I saw him again. I was over by produce, restocking the spinach fridge, and there he was, near the bananas. Same posture, same eerie stillness. Arms limp at his sides, chest rising and falling just a little too fast. And those eyes, staring straight ahead, unblinking now. I kept telling myself he wasn't looking at me, that I was being dramatic, paranoid. But there was something deeply wrong. Not with what he was doing, but how he was doing nothing. There's something instinctively wrong about stillness in a place meant for motion. Walmart is never truly quiet. Carts squeak, kids whine, people chatter. So when someone freezes, completely still, it messes with your brain. I made my way toward the back room. On the way, I passed the registers and spotted Heather, the front-end supervisor, tapping on her handheld. "Hey," I said low. "There's this guy in produce. He's acting kind of weird." She barely glanced up. Define weird. Just not shopping. Just watching people. Standing still, like too still. She rolled her eyes. "It's Walmart, girl. Welcome to the club." I laughed a little because that's what you do. You laugh it off. Pretend it's not sitting in your gut like a rock. But then things escalated. About 40 minutes later, I was returning a basket of over-the-counter meds someone had ditched by toys when I heard shouting. It wasn't angry shouting, it was sudden, raw, like pain had ripped up from somewhere deep. The sound came from near the deli. I pushed my cart forward, craning my neck to see. A crowd had formed near the hot bar, where the rotisserie chickens usually spin. Someone was on the floor. It was him. He was thrashing, hard, his whole body bucking off the tile like he was seizing, but it wasn't random. It was almost rhythmic, like something inside him was trying to claw its way out. His arms flailed wildly, smacking into a woman standing too close. She screamed and stumbled backward, dropping her phone. A little boy clung to her leg, frozen, his mouth slack and eyes wide like dinner plates. Then just like that, he stopped. 1 second, chaos. The next, dead still. His body collapsed flat to the ground, limbs sprawled like a puppet whose strings had been snipped. I expected someone, anyone, to rush over. A nurse, a concerned dad, a brave stranger. But nobody moved. We were all suspended in that breathless moment, locked in that weird psychological standoff where everyone's waiting for someone else to act first. Then he sat up. Not groggy, not dazed, just snapped upright. So fast it didn't look real. A line of blood trailed from the corner of his mouth, and his head whipped around, eyes darting like a panicked animal boxed in a cage. Then his gaze landed on the woman who'd screamed, and he lunged. For a split second I thought he was going to punch her, but that's not what he did. He sank his teeth into her neck. The sound she made, I can still hear it. A raw, gurgled gasp, half scream, half disbelief. The store exploded around us. People shrieked and bolted in every direction. Someone knocked over a pyramid of peanut butter jars, sending them clattering and spinning across the tile like marbles. The kid was wailing, the high, sharp pitch that drills right through your spine. I didn't think. I just ran. Bolted toward the bakery, heart pounding like it was trying to kick out of my chest. I ducked into the hallway that leads to the break room, feet skidding a little on the polished floor. Empty, thank God. I yanked the landline off the wall and jabbed at the numbers with shaking fingers. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man attacking people, I panted. Couldn't. I let the receiver dangle and sprinted back out. Something in me needed to know how bad it had gotten. By the time I reached the front of the store, the answer was clear. Blood, not just a little. Smears across the linoleum near checkout. A trail leading past the registers. The security gate over the entrance was half dropped, like someone had tried to close it and then gave up. Behind the jewelry counter, someone was crouched and sobbing into their hands. I spotted Heather ducked low behind register 6, waving frantic toward the fire exit. Her face was pale, tight with panic. "Out," she shouted when she saw me. "Get out now. He's still inside." "What about the woman?" I asked. "The one he bit?" Heather just shook her head. That small motion said everything. I helped 2 elderly women move quickly toward the exit, hands on their backs, guiding them through the chaos. Just as we neared the doors, I glanced back. He was there, the man. But he wasn't alone now. Beside him was someone else, a younger guy, maybe mid-20s. I recognized him vaguely, probably a night shift cashier. But now he looked wrong. He moved like the first man had earlier, sluggish, twitchy, head tilted at an unnatural angle. His mouth was stained red. The first man turned his head and opened his mouth wide. What came out wasn't language, wasn't human. A low, bubbling gurgle, like he was trying to scream around something lodged deep in his throat. It was choked, wet, primal. That's when I ran for real. No hesitation, just instinct. Outside was pure bedlam. People crying, shaking on their phones. Some stared blankly at the building like expecting it to erupt into flames. Sirens in the distance, then flashing lights. Police, EMS, news vans. Officers went in with weapons drawn. They moved fast. Later, they said the woman died from fatal injuries during a violent assault. That's how the news framed it. Safe, sanitized. What they didn't say, what I knew, was that by the time first responders found her, she'd already stood back up and attacked someone else. It wasn't a zombie movie, not exactly. No graveyards, no shambling hordes. But whatever it was that started in that man, it was moving, spreading. It didn't need to make sense. It just needed to jump. They cleared the store, locked it down, told the public it was contained. But I saw the way the cops looked at each other, saw the one officer with his hand shaking so hard he couldn't reholster his weapon. Something about it scared them. Something didn't add up. Walmart stayed closed for 2 weeks. The official reason was renovations and sanitation. The town accepted that. Nobody asked too many questions. Maybe they didn't want to know. But I remember the way he moved, the stillness, the lunge, the sound, and the hunger. They said it was bath salts, said it was just one man, one breakdown, one bad trip. Not contagious, not something that could spread. Then a month later it happened again, this time at the Dollar Tree 2 blocks down. Different man, same look, same bite, same scream. That was it for me. I quit retail, left Summerfield. I don't even put that job on my resume. But sometimes on long drives I still stop at Walmart's, just to grab a soda or some gum. And I always watch. Watch the customers. Watch the quiet ones. The ones who stand too still, who don't blink quite enough, whose eyes look a little too empty, too hungry. Because I used to think the monsters came out at night. But now I know the truth. Daylight doesn't save you. Not in Florida. Not in Walmart. Not when something in life. But I wasn't ashamed either. Working the overnight shift at Walmart definitely wasn't anyone's dream job, least of all mine. But it paid the bills. Barely. It kept the electricity on, gas in the tank, and let me sleep through the sunlit hours when the rest of the world felt too loud anyway. After years of bouncing between jobs, auto repair, warehouse gigs, even a soul-crushing stint in fast food, stocking shelves at 2 a.m. seemed tolerable, quiet, drama-free, or so I thought. At the time, I was married. Ellie. We'd been together close to 15 years. We met at a backyard barbecue, hot dogs, cheap beer, plastic lawn chairs, and hit it off almost immediately. Within months, we'd moved in together, married soon after. Too fast, probably. But back then, we were both in our late 20s, surrounded by friends who were settling down, buying homes, starting families. It felt like we were supposed to do it too. The next logical step. We were both worn down by dating failures, and I think we saw something safe in each other. Familiar. Ellie and I weren't some perfect love story, but we worked. Or at least it looked that way. She had her job at the dental office across town, and I had mine at Walmart. Our schedules overlapped just enough for us to share dinner most nights, usually around 5. She'd be coming in from work, and I'd just be dragging myself out of bed. We'd eat something simple, frozen pizza, pasta from a box, and talk about her annoying patients, the weirdos I dealt with in aisle 5. It was routine, comfortable. But under the surface, there was always a strange tension. She laughed too hard at her phone sometimes, always angled it away from me. On weekends, she'd vanish for hours at a time, off to go thrifting or catch up with her cousin. And sure, maybe she was. I'm not a jealous guy, not anymore. But it was the kind of thing that builds up, slowly, quietly. And then there was him, Brandon. His name would come up here and there, casually, like she was talking about an old movie she'd half forgotten, an ex from her early 20s. They'd lived together, almost got married, but apparently he'd gone through some sort of spiritual breakdown. She said he thought money was poison or capitalism was evil or something, ended up moving to Colorado to live off-grid. I laughed when she said he wanted to build a yurt. Seriously? I asked, and she just rolled her eyes. Yeah, it was a phase. I didn't think much of it. He came up maybe 3-4 times in total over the years, like a footnote, something past and irrelevant, until that night. It was a Saturday, a week before Halloween. I'd worked a double shift on Thursday and Trey, my manager, told me I could cut out early Saturday to balance the hours. I didn't tell Ellie. Thought maybe I'd grab some food, swing by the bakery she liked, and surprise her. We hadn't done anything spontaneous in a while. I got home just after 2 a.m. The street was quiet, a few porch lights flickering like dying fireflies. Our townhouse was dark, no lights on. I unlocked the door quietly, easing it open so it wouldn't creak. Figured she'd be asleep. But halfway up the stairs I heard it, floorboards creaking in the guest room. Then the soft, unmistakable click of the door shutting. She never went in there. It was basically a glorified junk closet, boxes of old clothes, spare blankets, unopened wedding gifts from years ago. Something twisted in my stomach. I stood there for a beat, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the cat. Maybe she was digging for a blanket. Then I knocked. Locked. That was the moment I felt it. My heartbeat, hard and sharp, thudding in my ears. Why is the guest room locked? I asked, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. There was a pause, then a soft click and the door cracked open just an inch. Ellie's face appeared, hair messy, cheeks flushed. She didn't look scared, just annoyed. Jesus, she hissed, stepping out quickly. You scared the hell out of me. What are you doing in there? I asked, trying to peer past her into the darkness. I was organizing some of the old clothes, she snapped, brushing her hair back. Why do you always assume the worst? I hadn't said anything accusatory, not really, but she was already shutting the door behind her, pulling it closed with a finality that made my chest feel tight. Let's just go to bed, she said. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. Her lips were cold. Too cold. After that night, something inside me wouldn't settle. Every time I left for work, it felt like I was walking away from a lie. My body went through the motions, but my mind was scattered. I started misplacing things at work, dropping boxes, zoning out mid-task. Trey pulled me aside and gave me a warning. I nodded like I cared, but I didn't. Not really. Then came the photo. Ellie posted it to Facebook like it was nothing. A sweet little snapshot. Us on the couch, her smiling with a glass of wine, the cat perched lazily on the armrest. We looked normal, happy even. But when I looked closer, I noticed something that made my skin go cold. There was a lump beneath the throw blanket at the bottom of the couch, rounded, too large to be a pillow, too defined. It looked like a person, a shape. Human-sized. The cat's eyes were locked on the lump. Not curious. Focused. Alert. Like it was tracking something that breathed. At first, I didn't notice. It wasn't until the Facebook comments started rolling in under the photo Ellie posted that I looked closer. Who's under the blanket? Zoom in. Is that a face? Wait, is someone hiding? I stared at the screen, my blood turning to slush. I tapped and zoomed in, and there it was. A faint ridge beneath the throw, just enough shape, too symmetrical, too defined, to dismiss. It looked like a head. I showed Ellie the comments. Oh my God, people are so bored, she said, laughing. But it wasn't her normal laugh. It was higher, thinner. It's just the cushions bunched up weird, seriously. But I wasn't so sure. not after everything else. A week later, I installed a dash cam in my car. Not because of the house, but because of the car itself. Something wasn't right. I'd find the driver's seat pushed back when I climbed in, the mirrors adjusted, the radio tuned to stations I never touched. Ellie swore up and down she hadn't been in it. "You think I sneak out just to mess with your car settings?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "Are you okay?" I checked the footage the next morning. It was 3:12 a.m. I was definitely at work, stocking shelves in aisle 9. The video showed a man walking up from the direction of our house and slipping into the driver's seat like he owned it. Balding, thin, red stubble like rust on his jaw. He looked right at ease. He leaned back, pulled a small folding razor from his pocket, and began shaving the sides of his head clean. Then he lit a cigarette, rolled the window halfway down, and just sat there, relaxed. At home. He left 20 minutes later. Ellie came out of the house right after him. She kissed him on the mouth before he walked off down the street. That night I confronted her. "I saw him," I said, my voice shaking. "I saw you. You kissed him. You've been lying to me for years." She didn't even flinch. Her voice was flat. "Then I'll take the house, the car, everything. If you try to fight me, I'll tell people you've been abusive. Let's see how fast Walmart keeps you after that." I didn't sleep that night. I didn't go to the police. And yeah, I know how that sounds. I know someone reading this is shaking their head, thinking I should have gone straight to the cops. But how do you explain something like this to law enforcement? That your wife's ex-boyfriend has been living in your walls, crawling through vents, hiding under your couch cushions like some half-feral ghost? They'd lock me up faster than him. Instead, I packed a bag, took the kids to my sister's house across town, said it was a mini vacation. Ellie didn't argue, didn't even try to stop me. If anything, she seemed relieved, like she thought I was finally giving up, walking away without burning it all down. But I wasn't walking away. I was getting ready. The day I went back to the house, it was empty. I hadn't told Ellie. I knew she and the kids were visiting her friend for the weekend. I parked down the block, came in through the garage, and stood in the middle of the living room listening. The silence felt like a held breath. Then I said his name. "Jason." Nothing. "I know you're here," I said, louder this time. "I know you've been here. I know you touched what was mine." Still nothing. But I felt him. Like the heavy presence behind you on a dark street, the kind you don't see, but your skin knows. The hairs on my arms stood up. I walked toward the hallway, revolver in hand. My fingers were slick with sweat. "You didn't go to Tibet," I muttered. "You didn't become some enlightened monk. You crawled into her life like a tick. You made yourself small and fed off her." And then I heard it. The floorboard behind me gave the faintest creak. I spun, gun raised. But the hallway was empty. So I turned and fired, straight into the attic door. There was a scream. High, sharp, human. Something heavy collapsed overhead. I bolted up the stairs, heart pounding, kicked open the attic access and climbed up. The smell hit me first. Sweat, rot, and something else. He was there, crawling backward into the shadows, blood pouring from his shoulder. His face was pale, mouth twisted in pain, eyes wild. The red stubble was still there, the shaved head, the wooden beads around his neck. He looked like a monk, but he was no monk. desperate, the drifting, the ones looking for something even they don't understand. To cope with the long nights, I started sneaking in a single AirPod behind my hair. Everyone did it. We weren't supposed to, but as long as you kept it low enough to hear footsteps, no one really cared. Just a little music, enough to keep me from zoning out while folding the same 5 tank tops over and over. I figured the worst that could happen was a write-up. That night started like any other, Thursday, which meant slow. I clocked in, grabbed my pricing gun, and did my usual sweep through the women's clearance racks. A lot of stuff was still marked from last week's promo, so I started re-tagging while humming softly under my breath. Around 7 p.m., a group of teenagers came through, tossing shirts onto the floor and laughing way too loud. I didn't say anything. They were gone in 15 minutes, just another flash of chaos before the quiet returned. By 8, the store was dead. I pulled out the little folding stool from behind the fitting room desk and sat down to scroll through the nightly task list. Recover the fitting rooms, fold tables, return go-backs. Same list every night. I slipped in my left AirPod, tucked my hair to hide it, and queued up a playlist. Just enough volume to keep me company without tuning out the world completely. The first customer showed up around 8:15. He looked late 30s, worn hoodie, jeans, scuffed work boots. The kind of guy who looked like he just clocked out of a long shift himself. He held 5 items, a few button-downs, a pair of jeans, and a windbreaker. "Mind if I try these?" he asked, offering a polite, tired smile. "Of course," I said, reaching for a tag marked with a bold black 5. "All the rooms are open. Just hang this on the hook outside your door so others know it's taken." "Thanks," he said with a quick nod, heading into the first stall on the left. I went back to folding shirts, not thinking twice. 10 minutes passed. I didn't hear anyone else approach, but when I looked up, another man was suddenly standing in front of the counter. I flinched. I hadn't heard a single footstep. He looked to be in his late 40s, tall, pale, gaunt. He wore this oversized trench coat that looked like it hadn't been washed in years. It hung off him like a curtain. His eyes, they didn't focus right. Kind of glassy, like he was looking through me, not at me. Something about him put me instantly on edge. "Can I get a room?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Sure," I said slowly, reaching for a 10 tag. "Just so you know, we usually limit it to 10 items. He didn't say anything, just took the tag with a strange, deliberate slowness, then walked past me. He picked the second stall on the left, right next to the first guy. That stuck with me. Most people, especially at night, people come through with weird energy all the time, and it didn't mean anything. Then I started folding. The clothes he left were cold, as if they'd just come out of a freezer. I picked up a white t-shirt first. On the sleeve, barely visible, was a small dark smear. Almost dry. Almost. Blood. My breath hitched. I held the shirt up to the light. More stains appeared as the fabric unfolded. Tiny dabs on the front, then a drag mark along the hem, like something had been pulled. I reached into the pile again. The streaks grew thicker. On a windbreaker, the inner lining was stained. The final item, cheap black polyester pants, was damp, the fabric nearly soaked through. That's when I stopped. My body went still, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. I pulled out my AirPod and the silence hit me like a slap. Suddenly, the store felt enormous and empty, quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful, just wrong. I turned toward the fitting rooms. The tag for the first guy, the one who went in before the trench coat man, was still hanging on his door. He hadn't come out. I stood there for a second, trying to convince myself he'd slipped past while I was distracted, that he left quietly, that I just missed it. But then I saw it, a faint reddish line leaking out from under the stall door. It curved across the tile like a lazy river, heading toward the floor drain in the middle of the aisle. I didn't want to. Every cell in my body begged me not to. But I moved. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. The metal felt too cold, too real. I cracked the door open. He was still in there, but he wasn't whole. He sat slumped in the corner, like a discarded mannequin. His shirt was gone and his chest, God, his chest was torn open, like something had tried to carve its way through his ribs. The skin was shredded, raw. His face barely looked human. There were pieces of him that just weren't there anymore. Blood soaked everything. It dripped down the mirror, splashed in jagged arcs across the floor, pooled beneath him, and ran into the cracks in the tile. And on the mirror, smeared in long, shaking finger strokes, were 5 words. The devil made me do it. For a second, I couldn't move. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. I stumbled back, hand clamped over my mouth, bile rising fast. My ears rang. The buzzing overhead lights, the hum of the vents, it all blurred into this distant static. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Then something kicked in. Survival, panic, instinct, I don't know. night. But I can feel it now. The end creeping closer. The coughing's worse, sharper. My hands won't stop shaking. Cold settles in like my body's forgotten how to resist. So what if they come for me after this? Let them. I don't have much left to lose. It was the fall of '92. I was 27 and completely broke. Got laid off from this rinky-dink moving company out in western Kentucky. Benton, I think. Tiny town. I couldn't keep up with rent, and one day I came back to find the locks changed. Landlord didn't even leave a note, just dumped my stuff in a trash bag outside. I didn't have family to call. And friends? They disappear quick once you stop having a couch to crash on or gas money to offer. It's strange how quickly you can vanish from people's lives. Wesley's Supercenter sat just off Highway 68, right past the Shell station, across from the Dollar Tree. It looked like a knockoff Walmart. Same awful overhead lights, same bright blue vests, same sense of vague dread the second you walked in. But it wasn't officially a Walmart. No branding, no jingles, just Wesley's. It had been around since the '80s, and in that town, it was as close to a mall as people got. You could buy windshield wiper fluid, frozen Salisbury steak, dog food, shotguns, socks, all in the same trip. That store became my last safe haven. I started going in just to warm up, especially at night when the wind cut deep. I'd hover around the seasonal aisles, flip through whatever tattered magazines were left in the rack, pretend I was waiting on someone who was always in the restroom. No one really cared, not unless you loitered too long without buying something. But desperation changes you. When your ribs start poking through your shirt and your stomach growls louder than your voice, shame stops mattering. I started slipping things into my coat, packs of trail mix, protein bars, sometimes a soda. One time I walked out with a whole rotisserie chicken under my arm, sweating the whole way. But no one said a word. Not then, anyway. Still, something about that place was wrong. Not just the theft, not just my growing paranoia. It was the people who worked there. Most of them were what you'd expect. Teenagers on minimum wage, tired moms with nowhere else to go, a couple of crusty lifers who looked like they'd aged in dog years stocking shelves. But then there were a few different ones. I don't know how to explain it. They didn't move right. That's not poetic. Something about the way they walked, stiff and jerky like their joints didn't bend naturally. Their uniforms were always spotless, like fresh out the package. They only spoke if you asked something directly, and even then, their voices sounded rehearsed, flat, and when they smiled, it was all teeth. Their eyes stayed blank, like the lights were on but nobody was ever home. One in particular I remember, Greg. Tall guy, built like a scarecrow, blonde hair that looked fake, like it had been airbrushed on. He always worked the graveyard shift. You'd find him mopping aisle 9. Always aisle 9. Didn't matter what time you came in. That part of the floor could be squeaky clean and he'd still be there, pushing the mop in slow, hypnotic lines. Then he'd stop and just stare down at the tiles, like he was waiting for something to push its way up through the cracks. I know how it sounds. Hunger messes with your mind. Sleep deprivation does too. But every night right at 2:13 a.m. exactly, I checked. His mop bucket water would shift. Just for a second, turn this deep, cloudy red. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a weird reflection from the exit signs, anything. But part of me was already too scared to find a better explanation. Then I met Eli, first person in weeks who looked me in the eye like I was still a human being. Older guy, maybe mid-40s, black. He had this slow way of talking, real calm, and a limp that made his walk uneven. I found him behind the store one night, picking through the locked dumpster with a bent piece of rebar. And not just rummaging, he was looking for something, like he knew exactly what should be in there. He was wearing 2 oversized coats layered on top of each other and a scarf made out of braided up Walmart bags. I must have been staring because he looked up and asked, You hungry? Like hell, I said. Without a word, he tossed me a vacuum-sealed pack of deli meat. Turkey slices, still cold. You keep hanging around the front like that, he said, watching me tear into the plastic. They'll never show you. Show me what? He leaned in so close I could smell the rust on his breath like blood in a freezer. The buffet. I laughed, couldn't help it. Man, you're cracked. He didn't smile. Thought the same thing, he said, voice dead serious. But I've been eating good for 6 months now. No begging, no stealing, just nowhere to go. That's what Eli told me that night. Voice low like the shadows might be listening. We were behind the store, tucked near the loading dock, the reek of rotting produce and motor oil hanging thick in the cold air. He didn't explain much, just said there was a place below aisle 9. Told me not to ask questions, said questions got people noticed. If I really wanted a shot at surviving the winter, I had to prove I could shut the hell up and follow instructions. All right, I said, heart pounding, stomach aching. I'm listening. You ever notice the janitor's closet between toys and automotive? Yeah. It's got 2 doors. One's locked. Shy about being happy. I nodded, wordless, and kept snapping the shutter. Her voice had that distant tone, like she was reciting something she'd rehearsed over and over. We stayed there for over an hour. She made me take more than 200 shots. Same pose, slight changes in her expression, tiny shifts in angle or posture. She wanted every possible version of that moment. I tried to stay focused, professional, moving around her like I would any other client, but something in my gut twisted the longer we were there. There was no grief in her face, just this eerie intensity. Her eyes locked onto the lens like she was trying to force something through it. It wasn't sadness, it was performance, or maybe obsession. When I finally said we were done, I offered to walk her out. She shook her head quickly. "I'm going to stay a little longer," she said, "just to be here. I need to feel her again, you understand?" I didn't. Not really. But I nodded. At home, I loaded the SD card. I wasn't planning to dive in right away, but something kept me glued to the screen. Normally, spirit photos take me a day or two. I'd layer the lighting, line up the angles, smooth the edges between past and present. This one? I worked through the night, obsessively. By 3 a.m., I had 5 clean composites. Kara kneeling in Walmart, clutching the ragged stuffed bunny. A faint figure of a barefoot girl beside her. Blonde curls, head tilted just so, smiling softly. Maddie. I sent them to Kara with a quick email, still bleary-eyed from the edits. Her reply came instantly. "Perfect, thank you. She looks so real. You're a miracle worker." Payment hit my account by 7 a.m. I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, while editing some maternity shots, a heavy pounding shook my front door. Not knocking, pounding like fists trying to break it down. I checked the peephole. 2 men in suits. "Miss Jess Harding?" the taller one asked when I cracked the door. He held up a badge. "Detective Calloway, this is Detective Brent. We'd like to ask you a few questions about a woman named Kara Willis." My stomach turned to ice. "She a client?" I asked, stalling. "Yeah, she hired me for a photo session." "What kind of session?" Brent asked. I hesitated. "Ghost photography," I said, voice low. "She told me her daughter had passed, said she wanted something to remember her by." The detectives exchanged a sharp look. "Ma'am," Brent said gently, I never thought I'd come close to dying for $11.25 an hour. Back in college, Walmart was just supposed to be a pit stop, a temporary gig to help me cover tuition, rent, and microwave dinners. I was juggling full-time classes with part-time overnight shifts at the Walmart in Millfield, a little nothing town off Highway 92 where the air always smelled faintly of diesel and wood smoke. It was the kind of place where people waved to each other because they had no one else to talk to, where the Walmart wasn't just the biggest store, it was the nightlife. After 10 p.m., it turned into the town square by default, though that always rubbed me the wrong way. Town squares had charm, maybe a busker or a couple of teens skateboarding. That place? Nothing good ever happened after midnight, especially not in the back rooms. I was 20 when I started. Green, running on caffeine and poor choices, always one bad week from burning out. Classes in the morning, graveyard shifts 4 or 5 nights a week. I figured I could do it for a semester, maybe 2. But time blurs when you're too tired to notice it passing. Somewhere in that haze, I found people to lean on. Cassie from receiving, loud, sarcastic, and always munching on something from the break room vending machine, could make me laugh when I was ready to drop. Jordan from electronics was quiet, always listening, always somehow guessing when corporate would send in secret shoppers. We weren't close friends exactly, but during those endless fluorescent-lit nights, we became something like family. Management, though, whole different beast. Our night manager, Terry, ruled with a clipboard and a fake smile. Passive-aggressive didn't even cover it. He'd threaten to slash your hours if your pallet wrapping wasn't within compliance, whatever that meant. Nobody said much back. We couldn't afford to. People came and went constantly. High turnover, like the place chewed them up and forgot their names. One night you'd be laughing with someone during break, and the next their name tag would be tossed in the lost and found bin. Official story was always the same. They moved, found something better. But sometimes their car would still be in the lot days later. Lockers still full, like they just wandered off mid-shift and never made it back. No one talked about those ones. It was a Friday in October, one of those crisp nights where the cold bites deeper than the temperature should allow, and the parking lot lights buzzed like a hive of dying cicadas. I wasn't even supposed to work. I had a take-home midterm due, and a plan to survive the night on bad coffee and Red Bull. Then at 6:38 p.m., my phone buzzed. Terry. Ashley didn't show. You're the only one under 40 hours. We need you. I stared at the message. I could ignore it. I should have. But rent was due, and minimum wage still counted. I sighed and typed, "Be there by 9." By the time I parked, the sun was long gone. Millfield's Walmart ran 24/7 back then, though you wouldn't know it by the near-empty lot. Maybe 10 cars, mostly employee beaters. I clocked in a minute late. Cassie was waiting by the punch-in terminal, arms crossed and a half-eaten Snickers in hand. "You're a damn saint," she muttered. Terry's been pacing like he lost custody. "Tell him I want double pay," I joked, brushing past her. She snorted. "You'll be lucky if he doesn't stick you in candy till sunrise." We laughed, but it felt thin, like trying to pretend everything was fine when you both knew it wasn't. The first few hours were fine. Boring, but fine. I was on general merchandise that night. Toys, housewares, some clothes. Cassie was sorting returns in the back. Jordan had electronics. We rotated tasks enough that we barely crossed paths, just the occasional hello over walkie. At midnight, Terry's voice came over the intercom, smooth and rehearsed like he practiced it in the mirror. "Attention Walmart shoppers. The time is now 12 a.m. Our store remains open, but some departments will be closing temporarily for stocking. Please direct all inquiries to the front register. Thank you." I winced. Something about his voice always gave me goosebumps. Too polished, too cheerful for that hour. At 12:41, I headed toward the back room to grab an empty cart. That's when I saw him, a man standing just outside the employee-only door, motionless. He was older, tall, balding, wearing a faded green flannel and jeans that looked like they'd seen a few too many oil changes. No cart, no basket, just standing there like he was waiting for someone. "Sir?" I kept my voice steady. "That area's for employees only." He turned slowly and gave me a thin smile. "Oh, sorry, miss. Just looking for the bathroom." I pointed toward the front of the store. "They're by the registers." He nodded but didn't move. Just stood there, watching me. I held his gaze for a beat too long, then turned and walked quickly back to my section, trying not to break into a jog. My skin crawled. Maybe he was just lost, but something about his eyes, they were too calm. An hour passed. I was sorting shelf tags when my walkie crackled. "Cassie." "Hey, you see anyone in Home and Garden?" I pressed my mic. "No, why?" Motion light went off. Thought maybe it was Terry, but he's in the office, just weird. "Yeah," I muttered, more to myself. Weird. That creeping unease didn't leave. You know that feeling when you think someone's watching you, even if you can't prove it? Or when you hear your apartment door creak open, but, you locked it? That's where my head was. I kept working, counting towels and pretending I wasn't checking over my shoulder every 5 seconds. Then at 2:19 a.m., I saw him again. Same guy, the flannel. But now he wasn't alone. They were standing in aisle 14, seasonal. He and another man, younger, taller, in a black hoodie pulled so low I couldn't see his face. Neither had carts. Neither touched a thing. They were just standing there, side by side, staring at the wall of fake pumpkins and plastic tombstones like it meant something. I ducked into the next aisle, my heart hammering, and whispered into my walkie. "Cassie, you near seasonal?" "Negative, why?" "There's 2 guys back there. They're not shopping, they're just standing." She paused. "Okay, hang tight. I'll swing around." 5 minutes. That's how long it took her. When she showed up, they were gone. "You sure you saw them?" I nodded, throat dry. "Talked to one earlier, near the back. Said he was looking for a bathroom." She frowned, eyes scanning the end caps like she half expected them to pop back out. "Weird." Cassie frowned, brows knitting together. "There's no way he got that far back without passing receiving. Jordan would have seen him. Unless..." Her voice trailed off as a new thought formed. She looked at me, her tone tight. "Unless he came from the back. From the dock." We just stared at each other for a moment. That didn't make sense. None of this made sense. At 3:07 a.m., the fire door alarm went off near Lawn and Garden, loud and sudden, like a gunshot in a church. My walkie crackled to life with Terry's voice already halfway to a scream. "Who the hell opened the fire door? Jordan? Anything on the cameras?" There was a pause. Then Jordan's voice, quieter than usual. "Nothing. No one on the feed." Terry swore again, barking more orders. "Everyone get eyes on your departments. Probably some little shit trying to sneak out a flat screen. If I catch him..." He didn't finish the sentence. I was near Pets when I heard it, a sharp metallic clank. At first, I thought it was just one of the animal cages falling over, maybe something shifting on a shelf. But when I turned the corner, my blood went cold. The cage outside that held the propane tanks, wide open. The lock had been busted, twisted like taffy, and all the tanks were gone. Every single one. A crowbar lay on the ground like it had been dropped in a hurry. I raised my walkie, fingers trembling. "Terry," I said, my voice a little too high. "We've got a forced lock on the propane cage. It's empty." Static. Then, "What? How many tanks?" "All of them." Silence. Then, "Meet me in receiving, now." I took off running. My shoes slapped against the linoleum. When I got there, Jordan and Cassie were already inside. Terry was pacing like a caged animal, red-faced and seething. "This isn't a damn prank," he snapped. "You 3 need to start checking every corner of this store. If we're being robbed, I'm not taking the fall." Cassie opened her mouth to say something, but before a word could leave her lips, the old PA speaker in the break room crackled to life. We all turned. That mic hadn't worked in over a year. It was busted, hooked up to the wrong feed, only played through the dusty break room speakers. No one touched it, but there it was, hissing with static. Then a voice, whispered, raspy. Inventory is incomplete. We just froze. I felt it first, that cold, stomach-dropping feeling, like the floor had fallen away under me. My hands tingled. "Who's screwing around?" Terry barked, turning toward the break room. Jordan's face was white as paper. "That mic's not connected to the system. I swear to God, we pulled the wiring last year." Terry's voice dropped. "Then who the hell just used it?" No one answered. Grabbing a flashlight, Terry stormed down the back hallway. Cassie and Jordan followed without a word, but I stayed. I couldn't explain why. My feet were rooted to the floor. Something primal in me screamed, "Don't go back there." I stood alone in the break room, heart hammering. That's when I noticed the old security monitor on the table, the one connected to the backroom camera system. It had been dark for weeks, maybe months, fried after a power surge, but now it was flickering. I stepped closer. The screen wasn't showing a live feed. It looked like an old DVD menu, grainy and glitching. There was one option on the screen: play file. My thumb hovered. I don't know why I clicked it. The screen lit up with night vision footage. The angle was strange. From the ceiling, like it had been filmed through the vents. It showed associates walking below. Familiar ones. Cassie, Jordan, even Ashley, the girl who was supposed to be off tonight. And me. There I was just a few hours ago, restocking pillows. The camera had been watching us for days. Weeks, maybe. Then the footage shifted. A new angle. Ashley again, but not working. Tied up. Gagged. Crying. In the back hallway. Footsteps echoed through the footage, heavy and deliberate. A shadow appeared. Someone stepped into frame behind her holding a wrench. Just as they raised it, the screen went black. There was a wet, dull crunch. I jerked back from the monitor and gagged, dry heaving into the break room trash can. My radio crackled. "Sally," Jordan's voice came through, shaky, barely above a whisper. "We found something. Receiving freezer. We need you back here, now." I grabbed the walkie, my hands trembling. "I just saw the tape. Don't go in there. Get out of the store." Silence. "Jordan, Cassie, don't go in the freezer. I'm serious." No reply. Then the overhead PA system, the main one this time, buzzed to life, and I heard my voice. "Hey, you need help finding something?" My own voice, warped, slowed down, played back like an old cassette tape on the verge of snapping. "Hey, you need help finding something." The lights shut off. Darkness swallowed the aisles in an instant. I bolted, sprinting through the store, past fallen displays and yawning black doorways. Everything felt wrong. Angles that didn't match, doors open where there shouldn't be doors. Then I saw him. Jordan, lying face down in aisle 9. Blood pooled beneath his head, thick and slow moving, like syrup. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Cassie was at the front doors, clawing at the handles, wild-eyed. "He locked us in," she screamed. "Terry's gone. We're next." I didn't ask questions. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the emergency box, slammed it against the glass, once, twice. The third hit cracked it open. The alarm shrieked into the night as we crawled through shards, slicing our palms and knees. We didn't stop running until we hit the Waffle House across the parking lot. People stared at us like we were lunatics. 2 bloodied, crying employees. We called the police, told them everything. They investigated and found nothing. No Terry. No Ashley. The propane tanks were unaccounted for. Jordan's death was labeled a workplace accident. The security footage? Malfunctioned. I quit the next morning. Packed a bag, changed cities, switched majors. Cassie did too. We don't talk much these days, but when we do, over coffee or during a random check-in, there's something in her eyes. A distant, haunted look like she's still hearing whispers through broken intercoms. As for me, I can't walk past a Walmart without getting nauseous, because in dreams sometimes I still hear that voice. Inventory is incomplete, and I wonder if it was ever about the things on the shelves, or if they were just counting us. I wasn't always like this. I had a job, nothing glamorous but steady, landscaping mostly, owned a decent enough car, rented a crappy little apartment with peeling paint and a busted heater, but it was mine. I wasn't thriving, but I wasn't drowning either. People like to think homelessness strikes all at once, like some dramatic collapse. But that's not how it works. It's slower, like a leaky faucet. One missed paycheck, then another. Your car breaks down, and you can't afford the fix. Rent gets late. Your job cuts hours. Just for now, they say. You crash on a friend's couch for a few nights that turn into weeks, and soon their smiles tighten. They stop answering texts. One day you're coming home with groceries. The next you're brushing your teeth in the least disgusting gas station bathroom you can find. But I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because if you're close, right on that edge where everything's starting to slip, you need to know something. Being alone is the most dangerous thing you can do. I forgot that once. Just once. And it almost got me killed. It started on a cold Wednesday night in early December, out on the edges of a city I'll call Faywood. Not Vegas, not even Nevada. Just one of those half-dead towns where nothing feels real after midnight. Where a 24-hour Walmart squats on the edge of town like a lighthouse for the broke, the lost, and the weird. I wasn't a stranger to Faywood, but I wasn't exactly familiar either. Drifted in 2 weeks earlier after the landscaping gig I had 2 counties over dried up. Figured I'd make it work. Camp behind the old rail yard, pick up day labor if I could, maybe hustle a little helping folks load groceries at Walmart. Not a career, but survival doesn't really care about your resume. That night I was hungrier than usual. Last actual food I'd eaten was a gas station burrito, 2 days old 2 days ago. The ache in my gut was constant by then, gnawing at the edges of my patience. I never stole, not really, but I'd be lying if I said I hadn't stared a little too long at some of the shelves before. Still, I had a guy. Danny. He was a night stalker at Walmart. Been there long enough to stop giving a damn about rules. If he was on shift, and if no one was looking, he'd sneak me something from the deli, usually expired but edible. I pulled my hoodie tighter around me as I crossed the lot. The wind felt like it was made of needles. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few dented trucks. One sedan idling near the cart return, windows fogged over. I noticed it, sure, but didn't think much of it. People sleep in worse. The automatic doors groaned open. Fluorescent light spilled onto the cracked pavement like it couldn't wait to get out. Inside, the smell of plastic and lemon cleaner hit me. Home, kind of. "Yo, Bert," Danny called out in a low voice from behind a tower of bleach bottles. "My name's not Bert," I muttered back, but I smiled a little. It was what everyone called me now. I stopped using my real name a while ago. Too many strings. "You hungry?" Danny asked, already tossing me a plastic clamshell container. "You psychic now?" He grinned. "Only when the manager's taking a dump. 10-minute window tops, eat fast." The container landed in my hands like treasure. Chicken tenders, a little crusty around the edges but still warmish. I nodded in thanks and slipped toward the garden section. It was roped off at night, but the benches were still there, quiet, out of the way. That's when I saw her, Angela. She was probably 20, maybe younger. Wrapped in a threadbare blanket, legs pulled up tight to her chest, one knee bouncing. She sat curled beside the fake ferns and plastic chrysanthemums. I'd seen her before, here and there, but never talked to her. Most of us out here don't. Trust comes slow. She looked up as I came near, then dropped her eyes just as fast. Embarrassed, exhausted, that kind of tired that no nap in the world can fix. Hey, I said gently. You okay? She hesitated. Do I look okay? Fair. I sat on the opposite bench, leaving space between us. Just checking. Angela didn't respond, just stared past me, over my shoulder, toward the shadows near the stockroom doors. Her face went still. Not scared exactly. That night, I still think about it when the world's too quiet and sleep won't come. It was late July, humid enough to make your skin feel like flypaper. I was working a double, my second shift landing me in soft lines, clothing mostly. I was elbow deep in a mountain of clearance jeans no one ever bought, refolding the same 3 pairs over and over just to stay awake. That's when Becky, my shift supervisor, crackled through the walkie. "Go ahead and count your drawer, hun, time to shut it down." It was 11:55 p.m. on the dot. I remember because I'd just popped open the till and started counting when I heard the front doors groan open, the kind of sliding glass hiss that usually came with a whoosh of cold air. Only, those doors should have been locked 5 minutes ago. I glanced up, already annoyed, thinking I'd have to yell out a reminder that we were closed. But then I saw him. The guy looked like he'd sprinted through a swamp to get here. Sweat plastered his hair to his forehead. His tank top, once white, was stained and clinging to his chest, and his legs were streaked with dried mud and scratches. His eyes were wide, frantic, and locked on mine. He carried a hoodie and a pair of jeans, both still on hangers. The tags flapped as he walked, like flags caught in a storm. He didn't walk up. He stormed. Slammed the clothes down on the counter. "Yo, I need to buy these. Now." His voice cracked mid-sentence like he'd been screaming or running, or both. It wasn't just panic in his tone. There was an edge to it, something raw. Instinctively, I stepped back. Sir, I'm sorry," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice even. "We're closing this register. You'll need to check out up front." "Ain't got time for that," he barked. "I need these right now." He was staring at me hard, his pupils blown wide, chest still heaving. He looked wired, but not in the usual meth head kind of way. No jittering, no mumbling. This guy was dialed in, like someone running from something very real. I froze. Part of me wanted to follow protocol, maybe call Becky, but something about the way he looked at me made my fingers twitch toward the cash drawer. "All right," I said finally, voice low. $20. He slapped a crumpled, damp bill onto the counter. It smelled like river rot and gasoline. "You're short 3, I said, more out of habit than anything. He didn't respond, just stared, unblinking. My hand moved to my pocket on its own. I dug out $3 in change and slid it over. I didn't care. I just wanted him gone. Without a word, he tore off the tags, yanked the hoodie over his head, his tank top still wet underneath, then dropped the jeans and stepped into them right there. No hesitation. Didn't even kick off his muddy athletic shorts. Just layered them over and turned on his heel. He didn't walk away. He ran. Straight down the aisle and through the emergency exit. The alarm blared as the emergency door slammed shut. I flinched, heart pounding, and before I could even move, Becky came waddling down the aisle from the back office, sunflower seeds crunching between her teeth like nothing had just happened. Her visor was tilted back on her head, and she looked more annoyed than alarmed. "What the hell was that?" she asked, brushing seed shells off her shirt. I shrugged, still watching the door swing in place. "Just someone in a hurry, I guess." She gave me a long look but didn't push it. 10 minutes later, the whole plaza lit up like the finale of a bad cop drama, flashing red and blue, uniformed officers rushing in and out of storefronts, a helicopter sweeping the back lot with its harsh white beam. Even the gravel behind the compactor lit up like a stage. They corralled us all into the break room, me, Becky, a couple of stock boys, the poor soul from electronics. No one said much. We all just stood there under the flickering fluorescent lights, waiting. Then 2 deputies came in. One tall and broad-shouldered, the other shorter but with that kind of quiet intensity you don't argue with. The taller one held up a printed photo, a mugshot, grainy, slightly out of focus but clear enough to see the fury behind the man's eyes. He was older, white, hair buzzed down to gray stubble. His face was all hard edges. On his forearm was a crooked cross tattoo, thick and faded like prison ink. "This man's name is Richard Kellerman. the tall cop said, voice flat. Escaped from Rainsford State Prison early this morning.